Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a special edition of Colorado Sports Connection. Today we have a very special guest. We're talking about a native, true Denver Broncos fan, and she wants to run for governor of Colorado for your state in 2022. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce to you Danielle Neuschwanger. Danielle, thank you very much for taking the time.
Absolutely.
And folks, I want to remind you something. Right now, for governor for 2022, she reminds me of John Elway, and I'll tell you why. She has that swagger in her. And once you talk to her and once you listen to her, you're going to say, you know what, that's true. Just like Elway, fourth quarter, 2 minutes left in the game. You're down by 6. You need that touchdown. He had that John Wayne walk. Well, so does Danielle. Danielle, first question I have for you, what I have to ask you. Everybody right now going through the agriculture here in Colorado, facing a lot of crisis right now. The agriculture industry, if I'm not mistaken, brings in $4.5 billion. And it is no secret that our current governor, Governor Polis, is trying to destruct our agriculture industry. Talk a little bit about that for us, if you will.
Well, you know that I'm a cattle rancher, and I am the only native of Colorado on the Republican ticket. And so I grew up here. This is home. And also, agriculture is our third largest economic driver in Colorado. What a lot of people don't know is that the agriculture industry actually supports other industries as well. Like, did you know that there are 32 million acres of land privately owned in Colorado by private ranchers and farmers, which is 34,000 ranchers and farmers.
Now say that again. How many acres there?
32 million acres of land is privately owned by ranchers and farmers in Colorado. Wow. And also, our agriculture industry actually employs 170,000 people every year. For instance, the annual National Western Stock Show brings in about $120 million in revenue in a 10-day period. Agriculture is huge in Colorado, but also because it sustains other industries, it is so vital to Colorado's future and our economic growth. So what he's done is continually attack agriculture, and it's by no means not apologetic. He is married to an animal rights activist. He thinks 4-H is animal cruelty, and his spouse is actually a vegan. So he's not out there fighting for the ranchers and farmers like they should be, and continually they're under attack. And especially, it's related to his Green New Deal. And so we have to get beyond that.
Now, when you say we get beyond that, what are some of the steps that you would take to help our farmers and ranchers here in Colorado?
Okay, so I have this weird out-of-the-box idea. So I'm a real estate agent by trade. It's what I do to pay my bills. And a lot of what I'm seeing is a high private property transfer tax, especially for large landowners. And so what I've personally witnessed is that ranchers and farmers are subdividing parcels of land in order to pay off tax debt. And so if you had, let's say, 100 acres, we'll keep it simple, they're subdividing off 10-acre parcels to sell those in private property transfers, and they're not even making breaking even. Okay, so there's no surplus. Basically what they're doing is they're just making enough money, especially with all the taxes associated with it, to cover their debts. Well, as we know that Colorado is a desert state, it only takes one bad winter, one bad summer, one drought year to completely bankrupt a farmer, especially if they don't have anything in reserves. One of the things that I want to do is a Farm Preservation Act. And so this would be an act or a grant program that you could apply that would basically keep you locked in at a lower tax rate for 25 years. If in that 25 years you wanted to sell the property to a direct family member, there'd be no transfer tax. And so we're going to keep the taxes away from the farmers and ranchers and keep the money in the land where it rightfully belongs. Now, if you were to say sell this to a developer for a subdivision, the developer would actually have to pay the transfer tax.
Okay.
That way we can keep private property where it rightfully belongs in the heart of Colorado.
Boy, we could do a whole hour show just on talking about the agriculture here in Colorado, but I do have more questions here for you. Big thing right now going on in Colorado, the mandates, getting the vaccine. Governor Polis also shutting down a lot of the small businesses here in Colorado.
Right.
Also, you being a big sports fan, shutting down all the restaurants, bars and restaurants around the stadiums. Just killed our economy.
Killed it.
Okay. What are your answers and what would you do differently?
So one of the things I did in my criminal justice career was I used to run mass casualty incidents, large incident command situations. So I'm FEMA certified. And no one ever thought about this, but we have 7 military bases here in Colorado. And we have military troops that are so well trained, we can set up medical tents in sandstorms in foreign countries and treat gunshot wounds, but we couldn't treat our COVID population. You see, we didn't use the resources correctly, and we were going with a one-size-fits-all in medical treatment. Now, I believe that there's alternative medicine and healing on all paths of life, and that we should have treated patients based on their personal preference, not on a one opposition pharmaceutical geared attack that was basically just for money. It was a money grab, let's call it that.
Okay.
So if we could have actually implemented forward operating bases here in Colorado using our 7 military bases and set up incident command tents and run it like a national disaster, brought in our national resources, employed our National Guard, we could have positive tested or tested people who could have been positive very quickly and gotten them early treatment using hydroxychloroquine, vitamin C, magnesium, vitamin D, as early treatment options before we actually sent them to the hospitals where they were put on respirators, where they were given remdesivir. So we had an opportunity to do early triage, and we could have prevented a lot of deaths. The other thing I wouldn't have done is pull a COMO and put our sick in nursing homes. So you got to see COMO number 2 with Jared Polis in Colorado.
Boy, you bring up a good point on our 7 military bases here too. And this just came right in my head here too. What would you have done differently during the summer when we had all the riots going on here in Denver?
So my background is in criminal justice,
yes,
and I am very well loved and respected across Colorado through law enforcement. I'm very back to the blue. But here's the thing is that these people were committing crimes, the act of vandalism, rioting, looting, theft, assault. And our governor turned his back on the men and women who defend our communities and keep us safe on a daily basis by giving into the defund the police chants. You saw that with Senate Bill 217. All of the red flag laws that have been passed since he's been in office. And so he's really taken the power away from our law enforcement and put it back into the hands of criminals. So what I would have done differently is you got to get hard on crime. When you know as a kid that mom's watching you when you try and sneak cookies out of the cookie jar and you're going to get your butt whooped if you get one, you're not going to go sneak that cookie. If you start setting the precedent of criminals will be charged and they will be held accountable and liable, paying the fines, doing the restitution, doing the community service, serving jail time, a lot less people are going to break the law. So I would have actually brought in our National Guard as backup.
See, I love this because I think, and I'm sure a lot of people out there know this already, you must have the law and order in order to have safety in our communities.
Absolutely, but here's the other thing. You have to have the backs of the men and women who go out and protect our communities every day because they wear the badge, they carry the burden. The least you can do is have their 6.
By listening to you talk, I can hear that you have a strong passion for people. And for a lot of people out there that are losing their jobs due to these mandates, what's your message to Colorado?
So I've already been fighting this. I don't know if you know this, but our first responders reached out to me when the mandates first started and they were being told, get the jab or lose your job. And so I started filing lawsuits on their behalf and working with attorneys to fight this now. And I would tell you, don't give up hope because it's always darkest before the dawn, but the sun does always rise.
All right. Before I let you go, I just have 2 topics I want to talk to you about real quick.
Okay.
One is, as I'm sure everybody's pocketbook, taxes. Okay. Governor Polis has done a lot of behind the scenes, to affect our pocketbook. Your thoughts on what would you do to help the people of Colorado to best serve how their money is being spent?
Well, first, I think transparency, right? So one of the things that we don't know is where the money's coming in, where it's going out in Colorado. So I think we need to start with an independent forensic third-party audit of our state's finances to find out where wasteful spending is occurring and good investments are occurring. Because until you know that, how can you go to the public and ask for more money? Politicians are very good at saying, open your wallets while they pinch their purses. I think we need to get back to transparency where we know where the money's going and we know where our good investments are so that we can truly put our money where it needs to go. Until that happens, don't give your money to anybody.
You gave an example earlier. Could you share with the people out there really quick on our marijuana taxes?
Okay.
You had said something that the governor asked that he's given us how many hundreds of millions of dollars?
Okay, so the marijuana tax, when it was originally purposed to legalize marijuana, there's a 15% tax, and the majority of it was supposed to go to school infrastructure. But only a very small percentage very, very small percentage actually goes to what it's supposed to be given. So I was at a school board meeting the other night, and they were talking about how they didn't have money for food, they didn't have money for school buses, they didn't have money for teachers, their school's falling apart, and they didn't have money to fix any of this stuff. And then the person giving out this information said, but not to worry, because Governor Polis is going to give out $328 million for schools across the state of Colorado. And she was very impressed by this number, and I'm slapping my head in the back of the room going, do you know that that's nothing? It's not even a drop in the bucket of what you should be getting. And so it seems like a lot, because the general public, we never are going to see $328 million in our lifetime. So when you hear these big, impressive numbers, you're like, thank you for caring about us. But in reality, it's a slap in the face, because you should be getting billions of dollars.
Wow. All right, next question.
Okay.
For Colorado out there, all right, protecting your home, the Second Amendment. Your thoughts, tell the people of Colorado what you're going to do for them regarding the Second Amendment here.
Shall not be infringed. I don't think that's a hard concept to understand, but for instance, the red flag laws, gotta go. Senate Bill 217 with the body cams and everything that came with that, those are two things hand in hand that restrict our law enforcement from doing their jobs. Nonviolent felony offenders, why should they not be able to carry a weapon? For instance, an 18-year-old who bounces a check can be charged with a felony. They didn't do anything other than mismanage money. Why should their gun rights be taken away? So I'll tell you what I plan on doing. Reversing all of the legislation to limit your 2A rights that have been passed in Colorado. That includes bump stocks, silencers, accessories. We should not punish law-abiding citizens for their Second Amendment right, and I plan on reversing that.
Well, folks, I told you she had a John Elway swagger to her. It's Danielle Neuschwanger for your governor here in 2022. Thank you very much for your time. Danielle, thank you, and the best of luck to you, too.
Thank you.
And I hope to see you more in the near future.
Absolutely, in the governor's office.
In the governor's office, correct.